Okay, so where do we go from here with our focus period? So uh, right now, we are in year 4 of implementation, just starting year 4, and I feel like we're starting to really develop some systems that are helping the students in our intervention classrooms. We've had a couple of years to see how it's going to work, and we know what works and doesn't work. So we're really trying to formalize some of those systems and try to make sure that we're uniform in how we're doing things. We are developing an RTI handbook, which is at this link right here. You will notice it's still under construction, but it does have a lot of very good information in it. It gives you an overview of our RTI process. It gives you how to write goals for students, how to track goals, as well as a lot of good suggestions of intervention, particularly if you have a student whose skills aren't necessarily lagging, their academic skills, but perhaps it's their behavioral skills that are lagging. And so there's a lot of good suggestions in here that you could even use with your students in your own classroom. Also, we want to continue to strengthen the content of the enrichment classrooms. So we kind of did a restructuring this last school year at the end of the year and said, are we really meeting everybody's needs? And so what we decided to do was freshman year is going to be social emotional topics, and sophomore and junior year became more college and career readiness, as well as uh, SAT prep. And then senior year is more life skills, and then college career readiness. So, just to kind of talk a little bit about the RTI side of all of this, because this focus period is actually a large portion of our RTI program. So, our RTI program here at Mount Zion High School functions very similar to what you've seen as a setup for an RTI program. As we know, as high school teachers, RTI is a topic that's very hard to implement in the high school setting due to our structured day. And so, we've this our structure looks like this. Tier 1 is in the classroom, and that's the classroom teacher meeting the needs of the students within their classroom. So if you have a student who's underperforming in your classroom, you're going to try a variety of techniques to help them perform at level. And you're going to track that, and you're going to write down the different things you do, and also give some feedback on how the student responds. If the student responds, that's where we stop. But if the student's still really struggling in your classroom, you can go on to tier 2. At the tier 2 level, we have study groups, which are ran by me. During student study halls. I have study groups every hour of the day except for 7th hour, because I teach a class during that time period. In these study groups, we set goals, we check grades, and then I do tutoring. I will often go to the classroom teacher and say, hey, what are you guys studying this week? Do you have any methods that you think would work with this student? And I work very closely with the classroom teachers to help the students improve their performance. Then we also have, and study groups are very fluid. Kids can move in and out of them. Some students will stay in them their entire high school career. My goal is usually, if they're a senior, that they try to be successful on their own before they come into study group, but they're definitely fluid. I'll sometimes have a student who's really struggling just with one concept, and we get past that concept, they're fine, and they go back to study hall. Intervention focus is more structured. That's the focus period at the end of the day, where students have been pulled out of their enrichment and they're going to intervention. We make those decisions every 6 weeks starting after the fourth week of school. There is a form that you can fill out to recommend students for intervention focus, and this gives the students every single day a place where they go, where the teacher knows them, where they can get help. And then we also, for our seniors, have what we call senior study tables during focus period. So particularly second semester, if you have a senior that is struggling in your classroom, and particularly for those seniors that must pass your class to graduate, you can fill out a senior study tables referral, and it will be a week by week basis that it's decided if they need to stay or not. We've seen this be very effective with our seniors, that they will work hard to get back into their enrichment classes, so that and they get their feet back underneath them, and they're good to go. We also have tier 3 services here, math lab and reading lab. These are classes that students can move into at the semester. They should go through tier 1 and tier 2 interventions before they're placed in these lab classes. Referral process. So this is the process you'll go through. You will implement the interventions in your classroom, as I stated before. If they don't work, then you will refer the student to the RTI team by using this referral form here. As you can see, it asks you to fill out student's name, to explain to us, do you think it's an academic concern or is this more a behavioral concern? You'll see work completion is listed under both. Work completion up here means they can't do it. They don't have the skills to do it. Work completion down here means they won't do it. That you think they have the skills, but there's something getting in the way. Maybe it's organization, maybe it's motivation. We're not really sure. In these boxes here, you can use the space and make more space for yourself to discuss what you've used with them. If you have work samples, that's fantastic. And then there's also suggested tier 1 interventions. I also typically, when it gets to be close to the RTI meeting time, will send out a Google form that's very similar to this, but it makes the process a little bit easier for you to fill out. And then, so the RTI committee will look at those referrals and they'll place students if appropriate. And then if those services aren't enough, we can move them to tier 3. And once again, RTI placement is reviewed every 6 weeks. The RTI team appreciates when teachers refer students because we do look at data. We do look at the DF list. We look at star scores. But the most important data we can look at is what's actually happening in the classroom. I talked a little bit about study tables already. Mrs. Kennedy and Mr. Fritchie are the teachers that are in charge of study tables. And like I said, it's for senior students only, and they're placed there week to week. Typically, it's if your class is required for graduation. And this is what that referral form looks like. We do ask that before you place them as senior study table that you've made a parent contact and that you've talked with the student about their grade and their performance. Do be careful. If they don't have a focus period, they cannot be placed at study tables because that's when study tables takes place. So if they're a tech student or a work program student, we can't use study tables for them. We'll have to come up with something else. We do make database decisions on the RTI side of things. We do use Star 360. We use that ineligible eligibility list, and we use classroom data. So if you have any further questions about Focus Period or RTI, please come down and talk to me. I am in the guidance office, and I would love to answer any questions that you might have.